everyone. It's Lisa Graves here, and I'm with Greg Olear. It's like baked into my brain.
I know.
I'm here with Greg Olear tonight. Nadine is off, and we want to welcome you to the 5, 8.5, your midweek break. 5 stories, 8 minutes, and a chance to refuel. We slow things down to sip, reflect, and remember you are not alone. And I'm traveling too, and so delighted to see you, Greg. Thank you so much for substituting in for Nadine, and hoping Nadine's having lovely time traveling.
I hope also that she's having a lovely time, and I will try to and fail to bring it to that level, to her level of awesomeness. But thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be on the show because, like, I don't know, there seems like there's a lot of stuff happening that needs to be discussed. I don't know.
It's not. It's not something. Let me just say, it's different types of awesomeness. Different types of awesomeness. Yes.
Right.
Same level, different types. Yeah.
Yes. So like JD Vance went to this Cotswolds, whatever it's called.
Yes.
Which is like this asshole. All he does is go on vacation. Have you noticed this?
Yes. Yeah. I mean the other vacation, or the other report about, was it closing the dam, or in order to
raising the water,
the water so that they could go on a trip. I mean, it is really arrogant. I mean, on the one, I'm torn about it, because on the one hand, I would like him nowhere near any level of power, and if he's off vacationing, it seems like there's less of a risk of him participating in something stupid and terrible. On the other hand, I believe that it's costing us money for him to be going on all these vacations, and so it seems like somehow we're being forced to pay for his luxury lifestyle in order to keep him away from some of the levers of power. But it may be worth it. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm agnostic about it. First of all, does he even need secret? Like, is anybody out there like, I'm going to go get JD Vance? Like, nobody cares about JD Vance other than to boo him and humiliate him. I mean, I think he's probably fine to go around without all these people around. Like, that's the thing that strikes me the most funny is, like, you need all these guys? Because I don't think anybody gives a shit about JD Vance.
Yeah, like, the baseline, whatever the baseline Secret Service that they cut off from former presidents, I suppose, might be the trick. But but the other part was I still can't get out of my retinas one of those first trips when he was off to Iceland, or off to Greenland, to try to claim it for us, like he was landing on the moon.
That's what he did. That was his pose. He had a big boofy jacket on.
Yeah.
It looked ridiculous.
Yeah. It was absurd. And the people who live there were like, GTFO. And they were right, Yeah.
The one takeaway I have, I'm glad that he's not in the United States. I feel good knowing there's an ocean between me and JD Vance, which didn't happen when I was in Barcelona. Trump came to Scotland, so he was like coming too close to me.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the fact that he was chosen seems non-random, given his ties to Peter Thiel and the super rich Silicon Valley billionaire right-wing regressive monarchists. That seems like not a coincidence. But obviously his whole political career and his life in a way has been staked by that connection to Thiel, that notion that he decided in law school, that's the ticket. That's his golden ticket. And there he is. They helped get him a senatorship, an undistinguished senatorship. And then, this post, as someone wrote in the chat, second in line. And then there was just the whole sort of debacle of his hillbilly, elegy and Hollywood's investment in this mythology that he was trying to create about himself, when in fact he's a kid whose parents were, or his grandparents were in Appalachia, but he was busy taking golf lessons in high school. Not exactly the rags to riches sort of story that he wanted to portray to the American people.
Yeah, but he had to play on public golf courses, so cut him some slack. He really had to rough it.
It's funny.
Because he had a terrible hook and he would hit the ball into the rough. No, I don't know.
That's hilarious.
Screw him.
One of the great lines I saw about this effort to privatize public schools and demand that we subsidize people's private schools was like, that's like going to public golf course and being like, yeah, but I really want to go to the country club. Can't you just have the taxpayer pay my way into the country club?
That's a good analogy.
Using the municipal golf course like everyone else who can't afford the country club, Except
that we should just like take the country clubs and turn them into affordable housing for people that.
Well, there's that. There's that. There are other options in terms. I mean, also like at one point, during the fracking debate over the effort to, push this extreme fracking in upstate New York, for example, there was this group that I did a profile on called Energy in Depth, and it had this dude who would basically try to say it doesn't matter that they're just sucking up all this fresh water to drill these fracking wells, and then basically using that poison water, on roadways or, whatever the consequences were. He kept saying, golf courses use a lot of water too, as if that was like, so therefore it's okay to just spoil our water with fracking. And I was like, actually, your argument goes the other way, which is, yeah, maybe we should take a look at how much water some of these golf courses are using, and are they actually paying their fair share of our water bills as they spoil perfectly good drinkable water, and use all these chemicals on those golf, fairways. Anyway,
yeah,
that was an aside, but you were going to say something before I rudely interjected.
Mark Twain said golf is a nice walk spoiled or something like that. and to me, golf, the whole reason golf exists is because of the movie Caddyshack, that Rodney Dangerfield needed like a vehicle for himself. So, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I played a couple times. I definitely do not have the training or the desire to spend my days chasing a little white ball around a pristine manufactured course. But I guess everything is not everyone's cup of tea. So
no.
You meanwhile are eagerly awaiting the opening of football season. So that's exciting.
I am. We still have time to go. Time to go.
Yep.
So we'll get there. there.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we should jump into our first topic.
Do you want me to do the timer, or are you going to do the timer?
No, can you do the timer? I'm
good. I have it.
Hopelessly.
I got it. I'm good.
Okay. So we're going to jump to our first topic, which is it's close to home where I used to live for many years in DC. This this invasion of the city of Washington, of the District of Columbia, by these troops, demanding people's papers, assembling outside of Union Station, dragging out homeless people. It is really, and on the just flimsy, doesn't even begin to describe the rationale, because the crime rate in DC is at the lowest point it's been in 30 years. The invocation of this home rule emergency provision is totally implausible in terms of the baseline for it. And yet here we are with these combination of different federal forces in the streets of Washington, D.C. And meanwhile, I wrote about this in my book. It's coming out in September. But one of the overlooked details of January 6th was the rules of engagement for the DC National Guard in response to Trump supporters on January 6th, and they were affirmatively disarmed. They were not allowed to engage with the January 6th marauders until almost 4:00 in the afternoon, when finally the Defense Department allowed them to get armed. And then it took about between 3 and 4 and 4:30, about an hour to get back to the armory, get the materials, get over to the Capitol. That's part of why the delay was. And that delay was directly the result of Trump telling his acting Secretary of Defense that he did not want the DC National Guard to harm in any way his supporters who were coming out on January 6th. So they were affirmatively disarmed, and our Capitol was attacked, and the Defense Department refused to respond to calls from governors to have the DC National Guard assist the Capitol Police until hours after the attack began. And then meanwhile, here we are in 2025 in August, where we don't have people assaulting our Capitol, violently hitting police. And now he has chosen to deploy the DC National Guard against the American people.
Yeah, it's repulsive. That would be Christopher Miller, the acting Secretary of Defense at the time, whose chief of staff was one Kash Patel, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Can't forget, Kash Patel is a through line in all of the fuckery. So yeah, everything you said. Now, Nadine Smith, who I am filling in for today on Wide Awake America, her excellent Substack, wrote a piece about basically the frame was that, you know how people SWAT, where they'll call and say, oh, the so-and-so's house is under armed attack. And then the police will go there with the SWAT team and come inside. And the idea is that it creates this inherently dangerous situation in the hopes that maybe some violence will occur. Nadine wrote, this is basically swatting an entire city where they're putting these people there. They really have nothing to do. They're walking around the mall. They're walking around Georgetown. They don't need, like, come on, man. You don't have to be there. That's like the last place you need to be. Unless you're going to like get on like college kids for vomiting in the bushes, which thank God they're there now and not when I was there. So, but this is what's going on. And this is probably, presumably, what he wants. It's dictator shit. And, MacArthur back in the, I think it was after the First World War, the Expeditionary Force marched on Washington, D.C. and set up an encampment to try to protest. And he went in there and basically shut everything down violently and got in trouble for it. It was like, you're not allowed to do that. You're kind of an asshole, whatever. Now there's nobody left to say that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. The Washington Post had an article where they were talking about how Trump wants to create some sort of special expeditionary force or special, basically military that he's going to base in Alabama and in Arizona that would go to cities where there was disruption to bring order, quote unquote. This is all straight up Nazi shit, by the way. And some sort of an excuse, I think, to do martial law. I think that's what he's hoping for. He's hoping for something to happen so that the National Guard will have to activate the powers, and then he can be like, oh, look at this horror, look at Antifa, and look at what the left, what the Democrats did or whatever. And I don't know that the horrible attack on Big Balls by the two 15-year-olds was enough. I feel like if we're going to make, as Schooley said on Bluesky, if we're going to make the Reichstag fire out of Big Balls, can we at least have Big Balls be hurt more than he was?
Oh no!
Am I asking too much here?
It is. I mean, the pretense of that is just. I mean, whatever. It's unfortunate that whatever, he got jumped, but that is not.
I'm gonna go on the record here. It is not unfortunate. Fuck that kid. Seriously, well, he's a menace.
Well, I would like to have him sued and held accountable for his destruction of core institutions and data integrity. But this is where my pacifist nature comes out. Sorry, Greg. But I also, it's also the case that when you look at, basically the pretense of this, it really is absurd, and it is provocative. And to go back to that question of what is the trigger for an assertion of martial law? I firmly believe, this is my opinion, but I firmly believe that on January 6th, Trump was waiting to see if a member of Congress did get injured, and then use that as a basis for declaring martial law. And he was he had the papers ready. He basically asked for what would be the rules for that authority, and the wait wasn't just him sitting there, in the room with the hamburger, hanging out and ignoring all requests and stuff. It was if they managed to get Mike Pence or managed to get Nancy Pelosi, which was the objective of some significant number of the people involved, then he would say, we cannot have this vote go forward. We have to suspend. We have to suspend this vote. We need to have a do-over election. This is, and they just managed, the Capitol Police just managed to get the members of Congress out of the way just in the nick of time. But for that, I think he would have attempted to declare martial law. And so he's been itching to do it now for more than 4 years. And here he's trying to set up, additional rationales to do so.
Yeah. The other thing is DC. I agree with you. And that what was her name? Ashley. What was it? Is it Babbitt? Am I remembering it wrong?
No, the one who was killed, who was trying to launch herself into the House chamber. Yes.
To get Mike Pence. I mean, that was a real thing that happened. And if these guys found Pelosi or AOC or whoever, that it would have been very, very bad. And I think we can't, forget that the DC police that were there, the Capitol Police, protected and did their job. And without that, it would have gotten very bad. And I think one of the problems that we're having in society is an inability to for people to imagine things happening that could have happened or may have happened. There's the timer or whatever. And that does go into the next topic. But
I did post a thing because, one of the things that we covered early on back around, after January 6th and a year later was Boebert, sending that message, basically the 1776 message of the morning, and then claiming that she was merely reciting what CNN said, that Pelosi had left the building. In fact, she was sending a message to that contingent. And we found that no one besides Lauren Boebert had reported that Nancy Pelosi had left the building. And in fact, I reviewed, camera angle after camera angle to see whether any other, who could know that Pelosi had left the House chamber. Did any news station report it? We went through transcript after transcript. No one was saying that. They did report that Pence had left because the cameras were more focused on Pence on the Senate side, but on the House side, no one did. But you know who did? Lauren Boebert. And I posted that link documenting the timeline. Lauren Boebert was the one who was sending out the message. She's not here. She's not here.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And these things, we shouldn't forget about these things. Also, statehood for DC, please.
Yes.
Let's get this going. One of the reasons why we're in this mess with DC and the National Guard, and that Trump has control over it at all, which he can only do provisionally for 30 days, blah, blah, blah. There's only so much he can do legally. Not that he pays attention to the law, but let's make DC a state. As someone who used to live there and was registered to vote there, make it a state, damn it, I says.
Yeah, and it's really disappointing. Republicans have blocked it, but there were some Dems who were dragging their feet on it. We could have done it, should have done it, and we wouldn't be in the
first thing we should have done was that and Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
And then we would have 4 more senators.
Exactly. Well. Would have changed the future. Yeah. All right. So, we are on to the second topic, which is your essay on Germany in 1933 was your analysis, Greg, was just spot on and chilling. And so I'm not sure everyone had a chance to read it. We'll put it in the chat, but share some of your thoughts on this horrible parallel.
I'm really, it's amazing. Like obviously everyone knows about World War II and Nazis because, I'm 12 and I go see Raiders of the Lost Ark or whatever. People have these ideas in their head about what it is, but because of all of this stuff, I've read so much more about it than I normally would have, just because it's so urgent. I've read a lot of stuff about, especially between the wars, like from artists and poets and painters and who was doing what and where they went, and how they reacted. And this book is called Defying Hitler, which is a terrible title, but that's the title of the book in English. And it's written by a guy named Sebastian Haffner, who's he's a novelist turned journalist because the Nazis came, and he wanted to chronicle how it happened, like how Germany went Nazi. And there's a lot of books that are like that, where they're, then Hitler did this and then Hitler did that. And it's not like that at all. It's a memoir. So he's talking about his own experiences and kind of explaining what people were thinking, what the zeitgeist was, and reading this book. It's all 1933 or up to 1933. Reading the book, it's very, very eerily, uncomfortably reminiscent of now, where we have, you and me and everybody in the chat and this group of people who know that this guy coming in is horrible and a fascist is going to do terrible things. And we know that his followers are dumbasses and all of this, but nevertheless, they come to power. And, you just get the sense reading the book that Sebastian Haffner, whose real name was Raymond Pretzel, would have been, if he was alive now, would be on the YouTube channels and all this kind of stuff. Was that a sneeze?
It's a cough. It's a cough.
I was going to say bless you if you sneezed.
Yes. It's a little bit of a cough. I'm sorry. I've got a bit of a cold today, but, about gosh, it's been almost 20 years. I was working on some national security issues and ended up going to a meeting with Europol in Berlin about some of the civil liberties and national security issues that were coming up in the Patriot Act. And I stopped by to go to the Holocaust Museum in Berlin. And there was a book there that was that I loaned to someone. They never returned it to me, and I haven't been able to get it again, find it again. But it was a book about all the ways in which the legal system was changed to accommodate Hitler, that it wasn't lawless. It was actually a regime of laws. I mean, it was immoral, but that they were, literally changing law after law under false pretenses and all of the scapegoating, everything else, but that it was this legal regime. And then, we issued a report over at my group, True North Research. We issued a report recently about the authoritarian infrastructure. And I'm going to take a drink of water and then come back to it. So let me pass the baton back to you while I catch my catch this.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't put this in my piece, but one of the things that's interesting is that I read in the book is, some of the people that were standing up or trying to oppose the Nazis were the communists, which wasn't great either at the time. But one of the leaders of the communists was Rosa Luxemburg, and she was killed while in prison. She was shot, and the official report was that she was shot trying to escape, which is something we've seen a lot. You've read that, you've seen that in movies, whatever. And according to Hafner in this book, that's the first time that ever was written as an excuse for somebody dying. So that's something that the Nazis invented, shot trying to escape. And one of the things that's good about now, and we'll talk about this more later, is that we have things that the Nazis didn't have. We have better leaders. We're the Trump people are not as horrifying as ICE is. They're not going around rounding people up and shooting them, which is what they were doing in 1933. We're not banning businesses. There's differences for sure. And I think we need to lean into the differences, and the differences do give me hope. But anyway, are you good? Finish your point. You got to get off mute though. You're on mute.
It's a multifaceted fail. Anyway, as part of the research for this primer on the architecture of authoritarianism in the United States and the groups that are really empowering or emboldening this rising fascism, this authoritarianism, I was looking at this book called The Law in Nazi Germany. This is not the book I was referring to. It was the book I found because I couldn't find that book. But it was called The Law in Nazi Germany, Ideology, Opportunism, and the Perversion of Justice. And there's this quote in there that I just think is really compelling. And he said in this book, the authors say, while we often tend to think of the Third Reich as a zone of lawlessness, the Nazi dictatorship and its policies of persecution rested on a legal foundation set in place and maintained by judges, lawyers, and civil servants trained in the law. Intelligent and well-educated legal professionals lent their skills and knowledge to a system of oppression and domination. Their support of the regime resulted from a combination of ideological conviction, careerist opportunism, and legalistic self-delusion. That's the quote, and I think it's unfortunately quite applicable to some of the stuff we're seeing. But and now I was having a few disputes earlier this year as some of my friends and allies were saying, is this a constitutional crisis? I'm not sure we're in a constitutional crisis. Maybe that would be a constitutional. Oh, wait, maybe if this happened, that would be. And I was like, we are in a constitutional crisis. We've been in one since this Supreme Court, this radical captured court led by John Roberts, issued that decision granting Donald Trump immunity last year, immunity from criminal prosecution, that swept him into power, moved heaven and earth to keep him on the Colorado ballot, and was doing its own part to try to minimize the sentences that the people involved in the January 6th violent insurrection were being convicted of. This court issued 3 decisions last year, putting their thumb on the scale of justice, distorting justice for Trump. And I'm not surprised at all that this Supreme Court is engaged in a pattern over these past few months of basically twisting the law, distorting the law at almost every turn to aid Donald Trump. We're in a crisis, but some of the lawyers and some and other people are still in a bit of disbelief about where we are. I admit that I'm occasionally in a bit of disbelief myself, but
we all
because it's hard to see this happening with our own eyes. But there's definitely a component of the legal community that, is trying to just be like, no. If we just, pretend like this isn't fascism, it won't be fascism or something. And that's not realistic at all.
Yeah. Just to, close the circle on this, what I mentioned in the last segment is this lack of imagination. And, to your point, is it constitutional? Is it not constitutional? Blah, blah, blah. Getting lost in the little, it's the forest and the trees problem here.
Yeah.
There's a big dark forest that's basically like some sort of Lord of the Rings thing coming at us. And we need to act as if this is happening now. Now, as depressing as all of the Nazi reading is that I've read, the French resistance and what was happening in France after it was occupied is really bad. And, I'm talking about like the monetary system being fucked so that the French people were starving because they couldn't afford to buy stuff. I'm talking about women in France having to prostitute themselves to be able to afford food. I'm talking about French people working for the German government to do Nazi shit, and turning inward. And people joined the resistance in a very loose sort of way in France because things happened. They saw things and they were like, I cannot do this anymore.
Yep.
So we need to, and I'm going to write about this in the next segment of my thing, but we need to get to the point where we have to pretend that we're there.
Yeah.
Where we're in the French resistance, where we're at the point where this level of bad shit is happening, because this level of bad shit will happen if we don't stop it now.
Yep.
It must be stopped.
Yep.
Now. And that's it. And not by the high road, not by by any, we have to Malcolm X this. This is any means necessary. We need to end this. And that's my opinion about it. That's how I feel. So,
well, and I mean, and I think we have to deploy all lawful tactics and be very creative about. I mean, I appreciate the litigation that's been going on because it's put sand in the gears, but this Supreme Court is trying to unwind every one of those lower court decisions that have been trying to stop this an array of actions by this president that transgress the law, violate the law, break the law, and we have got to understand that this Supreme Court is not our friend, and we need to develop alternative levers of power to protect ourselves from this system. And that that could be through states and state action, like we're seeing about from California and more. So we'll talk about that later. But I see that our guest is in the green room. Do you want to bring him on, Greg?
I can bring him on. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. He's an author, a pundit, a strategist, a columnist. He's on TV all the time, guests on these various shows. He has a wonderful YouTube channel, which I changes the name of it. I think it's called Cliff's Edge right now. I'm not sure if it's Blue Amp. I'm not really sure. Okay, he's giving me the thumbs up. Cliff Schecter, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you. As we all can, as I think you've said, we were in 1933 Germany. Okay, doing as well as we can. Definitely have some optimism, like you too. And I'd also, I'll apologize for changing. I'm really good, obviously, at the branding stuff, even though as a marketing PR guy that you don't know where to find me, and I've changed things around. And it's a long story, but the YouTube is Cliff's Edge, and the Substack where I spend more of the time is blueamp.co, as in amplifying blue, because that's not just me. The YouTube's just me, so it's a bigger brand.
Okay. I got you. Did you consider Off the Cliff?
I actually did. I considered cliff diving. I considered. I mean, there are a whole number
cliffhanger
pun you could come up with Cliff. Hey, I wanted to go with almost like what the kids called me in pre-K, right? Clifford the Big Red Dog. I thought, but they probably sue me. I do have a section I often put in called Cliff's Note, and I discovered if it's not Cliff Notes, but it's Cliff's Note, they can't come after me. So MFers.
You have two F's, man. They only have one.
That's
right.
How
it is.
And good to see you, Lisa.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Cliff. I haven't seen you in person for a while, but I'm a big fan of your work over these many years.
That goes both ways. Absolutely.
Still together. Yes.
And just great to be here. I didn't know if Greg was talking about me because he kept saying we have this great guest coming on. If he wants to introduce himself, I'm like, who the fuck is that?
No, actually, we do have somebody after you. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I assumed. You're not offending me. I mean, I'm used to, everybody has to have an opening act. I'm here to warm up the crowd, tell a couple zingers, use obviously more profanity than any other fucking person in the fucking world. And then I'll move on,
You're allowed to. Lisa doesn't love it. I don't think she tries to.
Oh, I apologize. Then,
no. For her, she doesn't love it.
Oh, well, that's very generous of you, Greg. The truth is that I curse like a sailor, but I have not been. But I've been constrained by some of the fora that I'm in, and I'm afraid that if I actually do unleash, it will just be full on.
You just keep going.
You'll turn into me. It does. It happens. I made a decision at some point, and I think there's and this isn't. Everybody has to make this decision for themselves, right? But maybe there's a broader theme here. Democratic Party, wink, wink. And I made a decision that I started the YouTube thing, which has done pretty well, but the Substack thing, I did a crazy 12-hour live stream. Greg was on that with me.
That was
earlier on, so I was still coherent. But it was about 6 months ago, and we did it so that I don't know how, but we got like Heather Cox Richardson on and Malcolm Nance and all these great people, and it blew up because no one had been dumb enough to think I'm going to do a 12-hour. I was like, I'm going to really shock people, and I'll probably be dribbling on myself and like probably pee myself by the end, but I'm going to do this. And I knew it would get attention, I guess, old PR guys, right? And suddenly I had this big Substack account because it kind of just blew up. And so after that, I said I had a decision to make, right? Am I going to like just worry about everybody, that all these new people, like hundreds of thousands of people who showed up because the thing was crazy, or am I going to be authentically me? And I decided I'm going to be authentic. It doesn't mean like I have to say every thought that pops into my head. It doesn't mean I have to curse every time I have an urge to, which is every 7.2 seconds I think about on average, especially these days. But I'm going to at least try as far as I can, especially, and obviously my family gets their privacy, right? I only share about them what they share about themselves publicly. But otherwise, I kind of was like, you know what? I'm gonna just be me. And if people like that, great. If they don't like it, I guess, I'll do something else. And so I curse a lot more than I used to, just because I don't curse for the hell of it. I curse because there's a lot to curse about. And there are times when the only way I can describe an atrocity that I'm watching these guys commit, is doing something like that, right? But there are other times, like when I wrote up here, and I was talking to Greg before the show, where I want to be more creative, which I like to be with words. And I was trying to explain what we're going to talk about tonight. I said we're going to discuss the cacophony of cockchafers known as the Trump and MAGA droogs. And so that was my little play on.
And let the record show that I knew that a cockchafer was a kind of beetle.
You did. The great thing is,
2 E's, not John Paul George Ringo.
Right. There's cockloche is a great word, which means a rude and terrible person. I use that a lot. You can say what you want sometimes with and wink, wink, and people know what you're saying, but you're not really saying it.
No, I mean, I love the expansive language, but also I've been thinking I've been running out of curse words. I need to pick up a bunch of foreign ones to add in to really expand my repertoire from variations on the F word in different verb, adverb, adjective, hyphenate, the whole, prefix.
That's what I try to do. The hyphenates are the best. And if you need some, I studied and lived in France, so if you need some French ones, I'm happy to help.
All right. I may be calling on you for that, but let me ask you this. This Freudian slip of Trump saying he was going to go to Russia, as in Alaska,
right.
To Putin. Yeah, that was, I mean, on the one hand, I shouldn't be shocked by anything anymore, but that seemed like a pretty big tell. Like, what the hell?
It did. Again, the worst part of all of this is, and why I reserve such scorn and attack constantly corporate media, and I make sure to single out individuals who are incredible. Today on a live stream I did earlier today, we had on Rex Hubke, fantastic columnist for USA Today, who's like does a mixture of humor and politics.
Brought up at AP, by the way.
Yeah, he's amazing, and he is somebody who is at a corporate outlet. But when I was trying to explain what happened with Stephen Colbert and whatever, I'm like, were you fired by Paramount? Were you fired by CBS? Were you fired by Lionsgate? Were you fired by MTV? Were you fired? Was it Nickelodeon Plus? Was it?
Right.
I mean,
it was the new company, Schecter.
I know. I was being facetious, being an asshole, because the point is that there's 6 of these enormous entities, and so the thing is that when the reason why Trump can get away with stuff like that is because, of course, they say they're objective, but they're not. Each side gets to say this or that, or they're corporately owned and they're bowing to Trump. $20 million settlements and all the rest. Here's a 24 karat gold. I mean, Tim Apple,
Right.
and so he does that. He says that, and there are questions to be asked. Like, has he agreed to give Alaska back? Is that why he's calling it Russia? I mean, because it was once theirs, as we know. Seward's icebox got a hold of that shit for us. Was he saying that because he intends to follow the well-trodden path of Steven Seagal and Tara Reid and other wonderful Americans and go settle there once hopefully our system actually works and
please go.
I don't know. You tell me. Like there's a number of reasons he could have said I'm going to Russia twice, but it seems very Freudian. And anybody who's read Greg or Craig Unger or any number of people knows that this has all been in plain sight that he's owned by this guy forever. They had a little period, which I wrote about on the Substack, of falling out, which was fun a couple months ago, because I think Putin was like, "You're not bombing our pals Iran," but Bibi probably made him a better offer. They're all. I mean, these are essentially a collection of like the worst people alive. So maybe at that moment, Bibi was bribing him with something further, supporting him somehow, to keep him out of of prison, trying to get his members of the base back. Who knows? Maybe,
or threatening to release stuff.
Yes.
Well, there's that too, right? Epstein, remember, was at the Mossad. I mean, there's just so many.
I'm on, but yes.
Yeah.
There's so many sort of different layers here. We're living in a house of cards world. I didn't grow up in this political world working on campaigns. I didn't think it was realistic that, I think he was vice president at the time on the show, could push somebody on the train tracks in DC. Turns out I wasn't creative enough, right, about what they could do. And we were much worse, and I knew things, obviously. Like, I knew Nixon sat down with, the North Vietnamese, and I knew that Reagan, of course, with his meetings with Iran, while they still had our hostages. I mean, I'm not naive, and yet I didn't think we could get to that level of being a mob run, sort of international mob syndicate run country, but we are. So, and this guy's been owned forever, and really whoever's making the best deal, if it's a, Qatari jet, or if it's Bibi, again, there's a lot of different angles he could use, get the religious Jews back on board if they're off board, or whatever the hell it is, and at that moment he did something that pissed Putin off, and Putin had his little puppy dog Medvedev go out there and start attacking Trump. And saying, and even actually pushing some of the Epstein stuff. So it was kind of interesting but now it seems, he's back on board. I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
That's what's called in naval fighting a shot across the bow.
Yes.
Well,
he, I mean, again, like Putin forever has been like, you had one job. Right. I supported you for only one reason, right?
Sanctions aren't lifted yet.
Not giving me Ukraine. Like, great, you changed the 2016 platform. That's helped. But, you can't even get any information on Zelensky spending like $45,000 to put a bunch of drones and trucks to go a few thousand miles and cause us $8 billion in damage, blowing up like 45 or 50 of our fighters. And now I'm pretty embarrassed and look like an asshole. So, it may have been all of that combined. Who knows?
Yeah. It really, like, when everything's for sale and we have this, as you say, this transactional mobster, it's just like every day is a new bidder, a new,
what's Orban offering today? What's Erdogan offering tomorrow? Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Erdogan talked to him a lot on the phone. Yeah. Go, Lisa. Go.
I was gonna say, like, and like any shakedown, like once you're paying, you're basically paying forever. Like, like this time, the fee is this time, the fee is that. I mean, like, it is an endless.
It's a
chain.
Tribute.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
They're vassal states.
What you wrote about, it's funny, Greg, because you wrote the Germany 1933.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote, and I had to re-up it the other day. Because I was in a little over a month ago, was in Italy, was in Rome and Sicily and, and all that. And, we have some of my wife's family traces back to Sicily. We love it there. Could be a place to settle if certain places get fucked up. I don't know. But I love
We're all
Rome
looking at
in
places
general.
in Europe, Cliff. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What'd you say?
We're all looking at places in Europe.
Yes, of course. So Rome, it's always been one of my favorite cities as a history guy, and just it's the right size. It's a couple million, so it's a packs of real punch, but it's not so overwhelming like a Tokyo that you like can't get anywhere or whatever. And but I was there and we were checking things out. I'm just like, and it was right when Trump's like, I'm gonna have the UFC fights on the White House lawn, and I'm staring at the Coliseum. Bread and Circuses is right in front of me. And it just all came together. And I wrote a piece all about it. I'm just like, my God. And then he was bringing, but not in the way he just did in DC. That's why I just re-upped it with what he just did with the National Guard, the crossing the Rubicon thing. I mean, Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his troops, and there was never a democracy in Rome again until after World War II. So, I mean, the thing is that when we start ignoring posse comitatus and allowing this guy to get away with this kind of shit, it's not going to end up anywhere good. That's for sure. So I have a whole bunch of optimism. I'm not saying I don't, because I think there have been some great people who've done some things and stood up. There have been some people that have ratted him out who are still inside the bureaucracy and stopped him from doing certain things. I still think we've got cards to play, and I still think there are enough of us, like the three of us sitting right here, who are we're not shutting up. So, and people showing up at marches. I mean, last one I think we might have surpassed was the 3.5%, or we were somewhere in the range of what they say you need to have. I mean, it depended on which estimate you looked at, but there are a number of estimates that showed it around 10 million, right? Like, I don't know what was accurate and what wasn't, but we're getting there. And now, go ahead.
Well, that's why they're afraid, right? That's why they're trying to redraw the maps in Texas. They're afraid, every maneuver to keep this deeply unpopular, super destructive, fascist regime, unchecked. They've got their marching orders from Trump. Like, do not let any of us face accountability. We're all screwed. And not we,
stand up to him.
But
like one guy, I guess, what's his name? Who I never would have thought, to be honest with you, Massey from South Lee in Cincinnati, here in Kentucky, whom, if Thomas Massey, the guy that took a picture around the Christmas tree with assault rifles with the family, like the Charlie Manson Christmas card, if he ends up being our savior in all of this, because he's willing, if he joins with Democrats, could probably, they're pretty close to maybe having a discharge petition then with the numbers they have to get, the Epstein files released, I mean, I don't know, man, but if that guy ends up being the hero of democracy, I swear, because I saw him in the airport once and wanted to punch him after I, not that I advocate violence, anyone, I don't, I really don't, and that's why I didn't punch him. But I did go towards
power of nonviolence.
Say a lot of bad things to him, but he got in a damn car before I could get there. But in any case, I mean, Massey. I mean, there are some people that are standing up to him and here and there, not enough, but enough to maybe make the difference. So that's my hope.
I mean, the Romans had Caesar Augustus. I mean, that's like conservatively 50 IQ points on Trump. And when Caligula took over, there was a thing that he did where he was trying to like fuck with a river. Okay. It's very similar to what JD Vance did to raise the river. When I read the JD Vance thing, I was like, oh, he's Caligulaing.
Yes.
He's Caligulaing.
And you know where he did it, by the way? Because it's too perfect. Caesar Creek was
really?
I swear to you. The symbolism was perfect. David Schuster, remember David?
He's great.
Great Emmy-winning MSNBC guy or whatever, who has joined me at what I'm doing on Substack, which is, I mean, I'm honored to have him along. I mean, he's amazing. He wrote that piece about JD Vance, and it's excellent. Like, just taking him apart for that. The hillbilly elegy guy, the guy, the man of the people. But all these people that went like for a weekend to fish, stuff like that, like looked up at the sky and like it's beautiful, then looked back down, there's no water there because Vance sucked it all up.
I mean, to be fair, the boat wouldn't go well unless the water was up. So
Right.
I don't know.
He's more important than people's long planned weekend vacations who probably don't have vacations for the most part because Republicans have fucked them. So yeah, I can understand why he would do that.
But I mean, he had his kids with him though.
But
have
what?
you consider that, Cliff? He had his kids with him. I mean, have you considered that?
I mean,
I've considered it so much, and this really wasn't going to be a show about me talking about all of the horrific politicians I've run into. But JD Vance actually lives a neighborhood over from me in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did run into him in like a takeout place. And I got to tell you, I swear, my now 15-year-old who I think would, because JD at the time, he definitely wasn't vice president. He was either a senator or running for the Senate. And, I was on a 2016, like on a show on NPR with a reporter, Sam Tannenhouse, and JD Vance. And that's one of the places where JD Vance said I'm going to have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary thing. Like where he was just coming out and saying all this stuff terrible stuff about Trump. So I just wanted to go up to him when I saw him that day and be like, you lying sack of shit. Like, I was on this show with you. You were saying this, that, the other thing, blah, 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 in his face. But his kids were there. I was like, and then my own son was like, Dad, please don't. Because he saw the look in my eyes and he knew. And I was like, okay.
You do regret it. Every day that goes by, you regret it more.
Only because of my kid was there and his kids were there. If I had let him walk away without me saying something, then I would have. And I think, be honest with you, I would have done it in front of his kids. I probably wouldn't have said some of the things I would say otherwise, but I would let them know. I would tell them their dad was a terrible person and they should maybe go ask their mom and other people about how their dad had portrayed everything he ever said he believed in.
I mean, that is what Kendrick did with Drake. If you're going to go with that,
Kendrick did do that in Drake's face. He even brought out what's her face, at the Super Bowl. So maybe I should have found one of JD Vance's ex-girlfriends, brought them out. But
does he have ex-girlfriends?
I was just saying, assuming there are any others.
We're coming at you from a Salvation Army where this couch. No,
I was going to say there's some sofas that are hiding out, some donuts that he wants to order, but he's obviously a little nervous about it because there's something going on. Sorry. So I'll let you ask more if you've got anything else serious or you just want to kick me off. You can do whatever.
No, we have to talk about Alaska because we wanted you to talk about Alaska. So I have a lot of thoughts about this. I've given up trying to predict anything. What I'm hoping for is that Trump goes to Alaska and Putin just ghosts him because that would be so funny. That would be the best possible thing. LB, host the 5-8 with me. She's like, no way. No. Putin needs the photo op. He's definitely going to go. He needs to go there. And as usual, she's right. But boy, that would be great if that happened. But what do you think is going to happen, Cliff? What should we expect? What are your thoughts about this topic?
My thoughts are they're both in a lot of trouble right now in terms of, Trump's had a lot of his base turn on him and they may come back. I'm not saying it's permanent. You never know. Right. But plenty of them for the first time actually stood up to him and really in some ways cornered themselves because they'd cornered themselves for years on the Epstein stuff because they were lying like Trump was lying. And now suddenly, and remember the right-wing entertainment complex is about the grifters making money first. They've used Trump as much as they need him. But if he becomes something of an albatross, you're not going to see Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson and people like that we must have a principled defense of Trump, even if I lose my income from conspiracies and talking about how men should tan their testes or whatever it was that Tucker Carlson was saying for a while. He did actually say that, by the way. But so Trump needs it, and Putin after the fact that he hasn't won Ukraine. It's embarrassing to him. The fact that they're running out of troops. The fact that the drone thing. I don't care if it happened like at this point 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. It's 2 months ago. He's definitely embarrassed the hell out of him. So they both kind of need something. So I think they'll get together and they'll come up with a stupid plan to carve off some large piece. I'm sure Putin wants to be bigger. Trump will want to be smaller. They'll meet in between and have a big chunk of Ukraine that will go to Putin. And then Zelensky will give him the finger like he should. That's
Lisa,
what I think will happen.
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in part because there's whatever's going to happen in public and then there's whatever's going to happen in private. I mean, this is this in the modern era, Trump having private meetings with Putin without even the US translator, has been a thing. Like usually there are other people on those meetings between foreign officials, the U.S. president and someone else. And usually we have our own translator there who's translating. And usually there's a readout, there's a report out of what actually was discussed. But under Trump, no, it's Trump and Putin and maybe one of Putin's guys. Like, so whatever happens in the public sphere.
Putin can speak English well enough to talk to
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, he fakes.
Former KGB guy. Like, he doesn't need the translate. Like, that they're private. Like, that is a whole other vector of the unknown of what they're actually talking about at any point, whatever that conversation is. And then there's just the sort of whatever the deal or whatever the demand or direction, I suppose, is really the more accurate term that Putin wants Trump to do, to continue to, like, the idea that an American president was assailing NATO, which has kept the peace in Europe for an unprecedented period in European history.
Oh, it's only 80 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, how dare I be wedded to that idea of that security? But like, that's straight out of Putin's playbook, right? I mean, we all know that, but it's also, by the way, out of Charles Koch's playbook. Charles Koch in the 1970s was on the front lines of basically attacking NATO as part of his ridiculous libertarian, nonsense that he's been peddling for a long, long time. So, this confluence of it, of just trying to get out of NATO, but in the current period, that certainly serves Putin's interest. And so, that's one of the things that, like, there's a lot of things that worry me about what they could agree to. And as someone whose great grandparents were Ukrainian, like, I have a particular set of views about Ukrainian independence that is pro, by the way, not that was in doubt, but
by the way, my grandfather came here from Odessa.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm
right there with you.
Yes, so but they're like, and that's terrible. What that is a terrible circumstance. What's happening? Like, it's terrible. And Zelensky's so brave, and the people of Ukraine are so brave, and like, that's a tragedy. And then there are other layers of tragedy, which is, like, basically we've already told Europe they're on their own, and Europe is going to have to organize as if they're on their own. And like all these security agreements with these other nations, like Trump is singularly destructive to our foreign policy, and in a way that is almost, like, I would say, like 99% aligned with Putin, with that little bobble that was happening this spring, that little dissonance, which at the time I was actually not
performative.
Yeah, real or not.
Have been, or yeah. I do think it may have been legit, because I think Trump may have stepped out of line a little bit, and Putin had to smack him back in line and remind him who owns who.
Yeah, you're not really like, you're the president, but come on here. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Come on, dude. We've had you since you came back in the 80s and wrote that piece about Reagan. Shut up.
Yeah.
Right. We own you. Yeah. I mean, I agree on all of that. I don't think it's going to materially matter that much when it comes to what happens with Ukraine, because I think in the end, I think the Europeans, Canada, other countries, I think folks are going to step up. They get this, that what's going on here in Alaska is like bizarro Yalta.
Yeah.
It
is bizarro Yalta.
It'd be like if Churchill and FDR were like sat down, or we're like, let's go sit down with Hitler and
really
Mussolini. Let's figure out how we can give away parts of France and that kind of, and or maybe they don't even bring Churchill, just give away parts of the UK. But I mean, that's what this ends up being, and Zelensky is bound by absolutely zero of it. So this is already Trump's stance. He's already undermined our aid to them. And they already are hanging in there, and Russia's running out of people. And there are a whole lot of people that are the growing unrest and hatred for Putin.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to turn into. I can't say it's perfect. It's a terrible situation, but I don't think this little meeting with these two idiots changes anything. I think it's just the same. We're at status quo, which is,
Well, and also, don't you think there's a bit of it that's just like Putin wants to see Trump personally, in person, to talk with him? Like, it's like, it's time for them to.
You got to call the employees in for a review. It's
performance review.
Like, there's all these other little messages and emissaries, et cetera. But like, this is like, I wouldn't say mano a mano, that gives too much, but this is a face-to-face sit down, with the guy. Yeah.
It's sort of snapping turtle kind of thing. I don't know. it's terrible and it's a shame, but like the Republican Party as an entity, as all of us who've been paying attention to this stuff, opened up, this space for all of us a long time ago. And have been doing it in phases, with the xenophobic rhetoric. I mean, even when George W. Bush wanted and McCain wanted to pass immigration reform, and they had 67 senators. Yeah, right. And Rubio, they had like 67 or something senators going for it, but in the House it was blocked, and and there always were those anti-NATO isolationist voices that had been sidelined, but they were growing. And look, when you start behaving the way Newt Gingrich behaved or Mitch McConnell with Supreme Court seats, this is where you're going to end up. They always all think they can control the monster, and they can't. And so in a way, Trump is doing them a service in that. These countries, because the European Union needs to understand that we are not a reliable partner. And I don't know that we've been for a while. Biden can come in and do stuff, and that's one thing. And then he has to come home to like Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling him a traitor and screaming, yelling about stuff, even if he's trying to do right by Russia, by Ukraine and other folks. And so we're a mess. Yeah. And unless we have the equivalent of like a huge Democratic ass kicking, which they'll try to cheat and block in every way they can, and Democrats with the goddamn courage to stand up and use it, do stuff like you guys were talking about before I came on, like run the whole gambit of things, and I'm thinking bigger. Like we're always like, we want to do what they would do. No, let's outdo them. Yeah. Right. So it's like, DC and Puerto Rico are great. It's better than that. The U.S. Virgin Islands, the Northern Marianas, and Guam. They're, I mean, we're not in manifest destiny anymore. No country should have territories anyhow.
Right. So states, exactly. And I had the same view, Cliff, on the Supreme Court. Back in 2018, I wrote a memo that was basically the court should be 15, but not under Trump. But like it should be 15. And I didn't publish it because I didn't want to publish it while Trump was in power. But the fact is that then when some of the groups, which are good groups, they're like, well, maybe we should do 11 or 3. And I was like, and I said 15. And so I was like, well, then they'll escalate. And I was like, I don't care. Then it's 21. Who cares?
The more, the better. I want 81. I want 81.
Yeah. Like, why negotiate against yourself at like, we just want 2. They're not going to give you 2 because you only asked for 2. You got to take that. You got to deal with the corruption of this court for real. And you need real numbers to do it.
And people don't stop to realize also when we've had this number of justices, I think it's something like, is it 1868 or I can't remember, but it's definitely mid 19th century. And the country has grown in population 11 per, times over since then. So these guys can't even take most of the cases. So just on a good government type thing, there need to be, I've said often, I think we should double to triple the size of the Supreme Court. If you really want to look at the number of cases they need to look at, many of which get ignored that aren't, big political footballs, then it should be much bigger, and it would depoliticize the hell out of it.
That's and make it harder to bribe them for
right. And an intermediate appellate court too, but they get petitions for between 8,000 and 9,000 cases a year. The Supreme Court does. They accept fewer than 70, less than 1% of the cases. And all of them are discretionary, basically. They choose, this is going to be the year that we revise college admissions. This is going to be the year that we destroy the Voting Rights Act. Like, those are all handpicked by them because of the way this thing is structured. And it is manifestly corrupt and dysfunctional. And as you point out, it is not handling justice in the 21st century the way we need to have actual fair courts handle the volume of cases that are coming to them. Like, that's a neutral basis for that type of reform, independent of the corruption that we're seeing. And also in my lifetime, this court has had 75% of the appointees to this Supreme Court have been by Republican presidents. Right. Even though we haven't had 75% Republican presidents in the last 50 plus years. So the whole thing is skewed. And they were able to assert that somehow the court was activist, like that the court was just doing its job, and they didn't want it to do its job. They wanted it to behave in these manifestly corrupt ways to advance the Republican Party's agenda at any cost.
Most people forget that, like when Bill Clinton or inherited the court that he had, the only reason that it was a good court was because a bunch of people that were actually Republicans who in the past, when the Republican Party was a more normal institution, had been considered either moderates or even center right, like a Stevens or people like that were like, these guys are fucking nuts, right? Or Souter, people like that who were actual jurists that maybe were somewhat center right, but believed in being a judge. They weren't just Republicans with robes on. The Federalist Society had trained like Manchurian candidates, on what to vote on. So I mean, that people don't get that they've been trying to pass a lot of this stuff for years. And in the end, that's why they stole so many seats, and they did all of that because they kept putting on people that turns out, give them credit, were Republicans who actually were somewhat reasonable and believed in being judges. Even if they were wrong about a whole lot of things, they still were actual, in my opinion, justices. I mean, obviously the big one with, Sandra Day O'Connor was putting Bush there, which to me is it makes her part of the
original sin.
All this is the fruit of the poison tree since then, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, I just want to push back on you guys a little bit.
Okay, let's fight.
I think that the more power we can give Sam Alito, the better, because this is a man. This is a Titanic genius. This man,
he is. Titanic is the right word.
To be able to go through history and cherry pick just what you want,
to find the right,
and ignore stare decisis completely. It's really a talent, and I think that we need to honor this. So, okay.
You know what it's like to find the right marital rapist from like the 15th century to quote an abortion?
Yeah.
I mean,
a witch burner too. Yes. A witch
not easy. Not easy.
Come on, Lord Coke, the magistrate of Scotland and England from 1450 or whatever the hell. Okay.
And then we'll have to add in, and I'll just say this quickly. I know you got stuff to do, but like if you're busy because you have to turn all the flags on your street upside down, that's going to keep you busy for like a week or maybe, especially if you're as old as he is. That's climb up those ladders, your back hurts.
His wife does that, Cliff. You should know that better.
It was the wife.
Okay, so this has been great. We love you. Tell everybody where we can find you, because you have different.
And again, thank you for having me on and putting up with the fact that I can talk all night, because
no, we love it.
Was the spawn of New York that I am.
We love it.
The best, there's the two best places by far. The Substack, which is just blueamp.co. So very simple, straightforward, just blueamp.co. The name of it is Blueamp. And then the YouTube channel is it's just youtube.com. If you put that stuff in, and it's just at @Cliffs_Edge. So Cliffs Edge, but at @Cliffs_Edge. And those are the two, because I made a decision that I'm going to spend my time in places that actually allow me to, earn a living, and where I don't give away all my content for free to corpulent yacht surfing lunatic, pretend environmental car loving Nazi saluting assholes. So, yeah.
Well put. Cliff, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a good rest of the week, my friend.
You guys too. Thanks so much to both of you, and great to kind of see you again, Lisa. It's been too long, so I'll have to have you on something too, and we can chat some more. And Greg, I'll find your ass, no problem.
You'll find me. You'll find
me.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you guys, and thanks everybody for watching. Take care.
Thank you. That was awesome.
He's great. We love Cliff.
He's great. Thanks for inviting Cliff on. Thank you so much, Greg.
No. It's my pleasure. And we should plug your book here now.
Yes, I did post it in the chat for without.
I know, but I have to. This is a really good book, and it's about.
You did read it. Greg did read it. You did read it.
Asshole.
Yeah.
This Roberts guy. I saw what apparently was an AI thing of Roberts and Ghislaine hugging, and I'm sure it's fake, but it still brought me great pleasure. That's all. The perils of AI.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Okay, are you good? We'll
I'm
plow
good.
through this.
We can keep going. I know we're gonna go. We're going long. This is gonna be
going long. I don't care.
Going long.
You're the one that's on the road here. I don't want to.
That's okay. I'm good.
Okay. I'm hitting the button. The timer now.
Okay. I can't. Okay. Now this is. I cannot believe this. I'm gonna call him a son of a Trump, because that's what I think really needs to change in slang. I cannot believe that Pete Hegseth. I mean, I can believe, but I cannot believe that in the year 2025, I have to contend, along with other women and the men who love them, and other people in the United States with a defense secretary who would promote a pastor who doesn't think women should vote. I mean, this is an insane proposition coming 100 years after women finally won the right to vote at the federal level. Had been voting in Wyoming for a couple of decades before then. But the notion that we even have to deal with this bullshit, that anyone who asserts that women should not be able to vote isn't laughed out of the fucking room, off the fucking stage, is abso-fucking-lutely infuriating to me. I'm inspired by Cliff's encouragement of my.
I love it.
Person.
If we get to the point where we have you totally dropping F-bombs, my work here is done. So the the irony of Pete Hegseth, endorsing this women should not vote, is that this stupid drunk motherfucker cannot do anything without his wife. He has to bring his wife to meetings. He has to include his wife in his Signal chats. He's got to ask. Maybe he can pomade his own hair. I don't know, but I think maybe he can handle that.
There's a whole new makeup room on the press hall just for him, man.
I stand corrected. He needs women to do every fucking thing he does, and yet he doesn't think women should vote. So, the greatest mystery.
Yeah. Go on.
No, the biggest mystery. How did this guy get into Princeton? I do not understand that. He seems like the dumbest fucking person alive. Really?
I mean, I'll tell. I don't know if I can tell this story. I think I can tell this story. I once. So when I first arrived at law school at Cornell, there was a guy coming down the row, and he was like, his name Harvard, and then he got to me and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Wisconsin." And he goes, "Wisconsin? How did you get into here?" And I literally looked at him straight in the eye and I said, "Dude, you fucking went to Harvard. How did you fall down into Cornell? Like what?" And he never spoke to me again, not once, not a single syllable. But the fact is that like, entering the Ivy League, I realized how much of this legacy stuff is real, or having one person who makes the call. Like, who knows who might have made the call for Hegseth, or what other, factors factored into it. But like at one point in my con law class, my first year of law school, the Professor Schifrin, who's passed away, he was talking about affirmative action, and we were having this robust debate. And there was this little group of holdouts in the front who were like, "No, there should be never should be any affirmative action for any reason, not to redress, slavery, not to redress anything, never." And then he says to them, "Okay, how many of your father went here?" And like almost all of them raised their hand. And he was like, "Okay, how many of your grandfather went here?" And like a substantial portion of them, their grandfather. And he said, "You guys have a plus in your, admissions package, because you are the children of men and grandfathers who went here when no blacks were allowed to go here, when women couldn't go here, like when Latinos weren't admitted, like, and your grandparents had an advantage in society then. And that was not enough for you to get into this law school. You got a plus on your application for being a legacy, and another plus. And then when they sort of reacted in stunned silence, he said, don't you think that, a positive policy of redressing discrimination is at least equally worthy as legacy admissions? And I kid you not, one of them said, "Well, no, because that's all about like raising money. Like the alumni give money. So that's a rational basis for this point." Like this was 30 years ago, I confess, but it has stuck in my mind about like, I did not realize the legacy process, or the kind of, boys club process of people getting into these elite institutions. And then people like, George W. Bush getting gentleman's C's in school where they were passing, where they would have failed, or whatever Trump's grades may or may not have been in his supposed, academic career in Pennsylvania at the, quasi Ivy there at Wharton, that, he won't reveal his, his grades. He wants Obama's grades and everyone else's grades, but we can't see his, under penalty of, who knows what. But like, sorry, that was a long rant about Hegseth, but like, I don't like listening to Hegseth talk. I can't imagine in what scenario that involved actual merit that he would be admitted to Princeton, which I I used to believe had high standards. I mean, Einstein, but still, as a professor there.
It's a mystery. I have more sympathy for legacy stuff because I do think that it brings money in, and colleges are businesses and they have to do the thing. Fine, whatever. And I feel like if Charles Kushner is going to give Harvard $4 million so his dipshit son can go there, the $4 million pays for a lot of actual people to go who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it. So it's like, as a novelist,
you have actually caused me to reconsider my hostility on that.
Oh, no. You were right to be hostile.
Yes. No, but that's a good point. I mean, it's bad, but it's a good point. Yeah.
It's well, because as a novelist, the novels of mine get published because some best-selling person sells a lot of novels, and that money funds other things, which is good. But the legacy thing, it's almost like it's the opposite of the line from Pirates of Penzance, where Frederick the pirate decides that he wants to go to war with the pirates, and his friends who are all pirates are like, what the fuck, man? You're our buddy. What are you doing? We're friends. And he says, individually, I love you all with affection unspeakable, but collectively, I look upon you with a disgust that amounts to absolute detestation. It's the opposite with legacies.
Yes. Yes.
Collectively, I disgust, but individually, it's the same. It's the same kind of thing. We've wandered way far away from
Okay. But let me just say, we should conclude this with, like, I cannot believe that it is August 13 of 2025. And anyone who dares to suggest that women not be able to vote is allowed to remain in any appointed or elected office. It is an absolute deal breaker. It is one of the dumbest, most regressive, absurd suggestions of anyone. And the fact that there's no accountability for this dude, for multiple things, but like that included, is just it is just a sign of where we are on this timeline.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm finding this good quote. This is, again, going back to the book I was reading about 1933 Germany, and the whole idea that the Nazis were like, oh, well, Jews are this. This is what he writes about, like, the Nazi, sort of justification for it, and this applies to this. This applies to this. That is such utter nonsense that it is demeaning even to take it seriously enough to argue against it. Yeah. That's it. It's fucking stupid.
Yes.
And the more women who vote, the better. Diversity is always beneficial to society. You can go through the history. Anytime there's any sort of golden era of anything, it's always because of, the ruling party allowed lots of different people in. And as soon as they clamped down on that, everything fell to shit. And that's just historically a fact. So, maybe he should have learned that at Princeton. I don't know. Maybe Princeton sucks. I'm going to go with Princeton sucks. Sorry.
Well, I mean, Anyway, we'll take up Hegseth again because there's all sorts of other shenanigans happening. But thanks for suggesting that particular horrible topic. But you're right; it's beneath us. We shouldn't even have to respond to such utter dross. Such utter dross.
Oh, dross is a great word. I like that word. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're into the last topic.
Yeah.
Except for the half topic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, we're growing so long. I'm sorry. This is what you get when I'm the co-host.
It's extended. It's like
it's extended.
5.5 extended.
It's 5 8 3/4. Whatever it is.
Exactly.
Whatever it is. All right. I'm hitting you wrote a series of pieces about Epstein that was excellent on your Substack, which is called Grave Injustice.
Yes.
Right? Did I get it right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It's like a play on your Yeah. You all are lucky that you get to play on your name. I have no plays on my name.
I think I earned it because I had to face a lot of jokes for the whole Graves thing as a kid. There were a lot of like buried many people lately, seen any ghosts. Like there was a whole lot of things. So I decided when I got married a long time ago, I decided to keep my name because I felt like I'd earned it. So yeah, Grave Injustice over on Substack. That's my Substack. Yeah. That's
your Substack. So tell us about these pieces, because you point out things that we should be paying attention to regarding the Epstein Ghislaine stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the one that we just posted today was a deep dive with with the receipts basically for precisely what Ghislaine Maxwell's crimes were, in the trafficking of teen girls for sex. And I went and I looked at not just the indictment document, but the jury transcript and the sentencing memo. And I think the sentencing memo is important to quote, and I'll do it here, which is that she played an instrumental role in the horrific sexual abuse of multiple young teenage girls. And as part of a disturbing agreement with Jeffrey Epstein, Maxwell identified, groomed, and abused multiple victims while she enjoyed a life of extreme luxury and privilege. And in her wake, Maxwell left her victims permanently scarred with emotional and psychological injuries. That damage can never be undone, but it can be accounted for by crafting a just sentence for Maxwell's crimes, which is why after she was convicted in 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison, in real prison, not in prison camp, but in prison because she's a sex offender, because she abused people. And she has never expressed any remorse, real remorse, let alone sort of fake remorse. One of the career prosecutors noted that she had demonstrated an utter lack of response and instead has tried to cast blame wherever she can. That's who she is. And she was prosecuted ultimately and convicted under, career prosecutors who worked in the Biden administration. And now we have this buffoon and predator, in my personal opinion, in the White House, who is, whose people are trying to orchestrate, some sort of exoneration for Trump to get him out of this scandal, and are willing to actually make her sentence easier, which they've already done by moving her to this prison camp in Texas out of a federal correctional institute, and are, apparently thinking about ways at some point for him to pardon her or commute her sentence and release her. And she is an utter devil in terms of being a sexual predator. She was not just like a madam soliciting, trying to, entreat people to become prostitutes, to be an adult sex worker. This is someone who was literally targeting teenage girls, underage girls, people who were minors, to participate in sexual acts with adult men. Some famous, some not famous, for the, pleasure and remuneration perhaps of Epstein and for the lifestyle that they lived. And the fact that anyone, any administration, no matter what their political party is, would even consider making her sentence easier or reducing her sentence is utterly monstrous. It is the thing of monsters. So I've got an article up about that, along with a timeline on Trump, which I'd love to talk about, but it may be too long for our show, along with a description of who's the guy negotiating this, who's Todd Blanche, the guy that Trump installed as Deputy Attorney General, and I say was, I think that the verb may be inaccurate, who was his criminal defense attorney officially. Yeah. Now right. Is the Deputy Attorney General and acting kind of like his defense attorney or actually really like his defense attorney, because I think there's really no actual line there in reality. And so that's what the two pieces are about, and I'll post the links in the chat. But what are your thoughts, Greg?
Well, I mean, Todd Blanche is problematic. He was a Democrat as of 2013, and then he moved to Florida in 2024, bought a lovely piece of property in Palm Beach County, and became a Republican. Gee, I wonder why. Can't figure that one out. No, everything you said is true. Ghislaine Maxwell is one of the biggest pieces of shit that ever existed on all the earth. And I think, she's also, I happen to know, because I've been told this by somebody who met her, a big name dropper. Like, she's like, my dad. She's like Meghan McCain in that way. Like, my dad, my dad. She's one of those people. She's a star fucker. In addition to being a rapist, sex trafficker, awful human, she's not even like a good hang. She's awful in every conceivable way. She does not deserve the benefit of anything, but Trump's pardon history is horrifying. Yeah. And I fucking hate all legacy media for not just harping on this constantly throughout the process, because I think that the corrupt pardons are something that people of both parties would have understood was bad. You know, but this is what Trump does. He doesn't think any of this is bad. He's friends. He was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell for a long time. Melania was there for a long time. In the big famous picture of them, Melania's just right in the middle of it, right? And these are now. You mentioned in your piece this New York Times article that talked about and had pictures of Epstein's apartment. Or not apartment, his huge mansion.
Townhouse mansion.
In this, by the way, weird place. It's across like the street from the Frick Gallery. It's like a weird street. I would not want to live there, just for the record. Not my kind of place. But he had all this weird shit. But Woody Allen, one of the things they printed is a letter typed up by Woody Allen. And which is gross, but Woody Allen lived down the street or whatever. And, you know, I don't know, birds of a feather. What I hesitate to cast aspersion on anybody just for going to Epstein's house and being there, especially early on, because people didn't know at one point. And at a certain point, if you're like, hey, come to dinner at my house, Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew will be there. You're going to be like, oh, great. This is going to be awesome. You know, because those two people should have vetted this guy and realized he was a fucking sex trafficking pedophile. But either they didn't or they did. And they were like, cool. Anyway, Woody Allen's there. And one of the things in this letter that's interesting to me is that they all go there invited to this dinner party initially at Epstein's house. Epstein, who's a gajillionaire, has all this money, has people working for him, has literal slaves running around in his place, right? And they go in there and they're sitting down. There's nobody's bringing drinks around. There's no anything. There's no food. There's no hors d'oeuvres. There's a very limited supply of food for. And Sun Yi is like, what the fuck is this shit? And she basically, over time, has to coach Epstein into how to have like a proper dinner party. If you're going to invite 12 people over, you have to have a fucking food at the house, man. And that's what's in the letter. And this is the thing. This guy, he's such a fucking rube. You know, there's this mythology about him. He's this genius. He's not a genius.
Right.
He got that job somehow teaching at the private school. I don't know if Bill Barr's dad hired him or not. They didn't line up. It doesn't matter. He got fucking fired because he was a shitty teacher. He wangled some kind of job at Bear Stearns, was doing really weird shit at Bear Stearns. The SEC wanted him to get fired, and Ace Greenberg was like, we can't fire him. And eventually he left Bear Stearns, went to work for another crook over in London, this lease guy doing that. And then from there, went to work for Steve Hoffenberg, running the largest Ponzi scheme that ever existed until Madoff came along. And according to Hoffenberg, Epstein was the guy that ran the Ponzi scheme mostly. Okay. This is a piece that he doesn't know anything. He's not a genius. He's a fucking criminal. That's all he is. The guy can't even have if you have a big mansion and a staff and unlimited amounts of money, how the fuck do you not figure out how to have a dinner party when you're trying to impress people? He's awful. So I know this is a really stupid minor thing in the grand scheme, but I feel like it's a like from my novelist point of view, it's a revelation of character. This guy is fucking all he cared about was trafficking the women. And Ghislaine, for him, they had that in common. Her father lost all his money. Jeffrey had the money. They enjoyed this together, whatever the hell it was. I don't know. But these are horrifying people. Horrifying. And Trump was best friends with him for 15 years. There's women, girls, plural, who were girls at the time, saying that he did bad stuff. He did bad stuff. He wanted to fuck his daughter when she was 14. He did. He said it.
The comments on Howard Stern are just horrifying.
Like having that impulse is awful. But going on a talk show and articulating and expressing that impulse means that it's really high up in the whole like thought process, right?
Yeah. Yep. Right. And telling Stormy Daniels, which she testified under oath, that she reminded him of Ivanka. And that was when she was approximately 24 years old, when his daughter was 24 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are unnatural. Those are unnatural thoughts, I would say, if you were going to categorize them. They're prurient thoughts. They're lascivious, they're obscene. And Trump expressed those obscene thoughts as his own voluntarily on a talk show. It is really shocking.
I feel like those words, not to be like they fail to grasp the severity of it, because I feel like there's a lot of these, like, legally, there's a lot of, there's obscenity. It's like Lenny Bruce. This is way beyond that.
Yep.
This is like an abomination.
Yep.
This is like the, this is like biblical. We're going to destroy the city because you do this level bad.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's not.
I know.
Saying the F word, saying fuck, right? It is pervert. It is literally a perversity.
Yes.
It is utterly contemptuous perversity that he expressed. And like you said, he was friends with Epstein for at least 15 years. One of the things I did when I looked at the timeline, which is in the Grave Injustice article, is like during the when Epstein was arrested the second time in 2019 for these federal crimes, for the federal crime of this sex trafficking, Trump said, he had a falling out with him like 15 years earlier. Fascinating. That would be 2004. And yet there was Epstein and Maxwell at his wedding in 2005. So not 15 years ago. Then you hear him recently talk about how Epstein, he had a falling out in part because Epstein stole a spa worker from him. Virginia Giuffre stole. But then when you look at the historical record, the reporters say that Epstein was listed as having his account closed at Mar-a-Lago, not in 2000 when she was employed as a spa employee, not in 2004 when he claimed during the 2019 arrest, not in 2005 when Epstein and Maxwell were at his wedding, not in 2006, only in 2007, in October 2007 is when his account was closed. And that just exactly coincides to the exact month where Epstein had to plead guilty in this dirty deal that he got from Alex Acosta to wipe away the sex trafficking charges. And so at that point, Trump, who, by the way, like 7 years earlier had considered running for president under the Reform Party. So he was already, thinking about how to shape his presidential ambitions. So in 2007, when Epstein finally is actually convicted, pleads guilty to this far lesser offense than what he actually committed, that's when Trump basically, locks the door on him at Mar-a-Lago for supposedly approaching some woman there. Meanwhile, we have testimony after testimony in terms of statements under oath, under penalty of perjury, of women saying that Trump himself tried to, manhandle and sexually assault women at Mar-a-Lago, including from a reporter. A news reporter who came there to interview him. So
People Magazine, yeah. While Melania was there, like in the next room. Yep.
Yeah. And so you have like this dissonance between like the reason why we supposedly stopped being friends many years ago, but actually happens to be exactly the month when Epstein pleaded guilty. That the timeline is not favorable for Trump's like storytelling of what went down and the extent and duration of their relationship. And even then, not being on the membership list, meaning like having an account there. Who knows whether they spoke or talked again? I don't know. But what I know is that Trump's, regardless of Epstein's charges, Trump's activities of attempting to assault women did not end at that moment, at least according to the allegations of a number of women.
Yeah. Who we believe. And he's awful. Anyway, good.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's done. We've gone 50% over.
Oh
so
my God.
Ready.
I'm so bad. I'm sorry.
We're right on schedule for like, this is the 8.5 plus 50% of awesomeness with you, Greg. It's a joy to do the show with you. And you have the glass half full idea for us for tonight to close us out.
I do. There's a couple of things. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen, and I'm going to put this up here now. Gavin Newsom's social media. Wait, let me take the banner down. Gavin Newsom's social media team has been like all over this shit. Like here, this is from a couple days ago. It says, Trump says Gavin Newscum is incompetent. And then he does the thing where it's like, you know, capital lowercase, which I always find that funny. And for people unaware, hi, Mom, that means it's sarcastic. Okay, so it means like, and this is the video of him like losing it with like his documents and Keir Starmer trying to like help him, put it back up. So, and then there's more. Let's see, this one here. When Speaker, and obviously he's trying to emulate Trump's very distinctive style. All caps, when Speaker Little Man Johnson is standing in the unemployment line, he can thank Donald Taco J. Trump. Trump missed a simple deadline, something he has often done with his many failed businesses. Now California will fire him with new, more beautiful maps, highly anticipated, historic press conference with your favorite governor, Gavin Christopher Newsom. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, what Nazi Germany did not have in 1933 was this shit. So, good leadership at the state level. So, that's the glass half full.
Glass half full.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Greg. Thanks everyone for staying on. And I think we may have a live show next week, and then we may have a little time off at the end of August. And we'll do a reprise, but please tune in this Friday for the 5-8 with Greg and Stephanie. And for you all, thanks for tuning in tonight, and hope you have a good rest of your week, all things considered. All things considered. So toast to you all, and thank you very, very much. Have a good night.
Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.